You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SEBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SEBO. When it comes to trading volatility, trust SEBO, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. SEBO's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again to commence our broadcast week here on the Options Insider Radio Network, coming hot off the heels of a fun week here. Got to do some live fun on this show last week, which was really fun. A lot of other fun stuff hitting the network. Hopefully you checked it all out. If not, hey, there's a great podcast for you to check out all that goodness over there. Wherever you're getting this show, make sure you're getting the full podcast network. Nearly a dozen shows coming at you there. Usually a couple of shows every day. And, of course, if you like what you hear, this show, the full network, whatever floats your boat, throw some stars our way. It does help the new folks, and they are legion these days. You might say, oh, they've been doing it for 16 years. They don't need it. But you know what? There's new people discovering it all the time, so they need the help. So leave it out there. The algorithms do favor that kind of stuff. So leave a few stars our way. It does help new people discover the content. Of course, if you want to discover more content for yourselves above and beyond the old network, then theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Be joined by our old buddy, Mr. Scott Nations, answering your questions again in our pro Q&A session. That guy, you can't keep him out of it. He loves answering your questions. So we'll have a great pro Q&A session this week. Another great options oddities, giveaways, all sorts of fun live streams. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. As we learn who is joining us on the old program today, I'm pleased to be joined once again. Just saw them live and in person last week. Now we are doing it remotely again. The greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com, as well as the rockingest of lobsters. Excuse me, not the rockingest. He was here earlier. And the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. I introduce them now, listeners, because it is time to commence our broadcast week in high style, the way we are wont to do these days. A little bit of the old 80s wrestling trivia. Here we go. All right. Here we go, listeners. Put your 80s wrestling thinking caps on. All right. The last time we gathered here together, we talked about the rematch of WrestleMania 3. And it was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. A great event. It was like Saturday night's main event. I think maybe still to this day, the most watched wrestling broadcast on television. Just insane. But another event happened on that card. which would eventually spill over to become the main event of WrestleMania 5. On that card, back in the main event, it was the early days of a tag team. Perhaps some might argue the tag team of the 80s, combining two ultimate faces at the heights of their powers. You could argue these were two of the biggest names, if not the two biggest names of 80s wrestling combined in one tag team. It was almost more than the industry could bear, and it was formed at that event back in 87, but it peaked at its climax. It really, some might say it exploded. Yes, that was the tagline of the final WrestleMania of the 80s, WrestleMania 5. This tag team explodes. I can give some more clues there, but I don't think I will. If you know what's going on there, of course, the last WrestleMania of the 80s, before we got into the 90s and the Attitude Era and everything kind of changed, and then changed again in 2000s. The final WrestleMania of the 80s, final showcase of the Immortals. Let's go around the horn now. I will unmute you both in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, I heard Sebastian first. All right. So,
we both know the answer to this.
Mr. Meatball, first off, welcome back. How was your sojourn to Chi-Town, sir?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed seeing everybody. I understand you got. Did you enjoy your free steak?
You know, it could be a Ponderosa steak. If Mark Sebastian buys it for you, it tastes that much sweeter. So yes, it was fun. Yes,
Chicago was great.
All right, sir. Our listeners are waiting with bated breath, sir. What?
The Mega Powers.
Yes, of course, the Mega Powers.
I mean,
for our listeners who don't know, name the members of the Mega Powers.
It was Randy Macho Man Savage and one Terry Bollea.
Yes. Can you imagine a tag team like that? I don't know what even the equivalent would be. It's like two sons coming together at the height of their powers in the 80s. Only thing you could do that'd be better is you throw Ultimate Warrior in there and have like a triumvirate. But I digress there. Gosh. But there you go. That might be too much. That might be too much for the industry to bear. The world might have imploded on itself with the weight of that awesomeness. But yes, that was the Mega Powers Explode, where Macho Man versus Hogan in the main event, fighting, of course, over Macho, jealous about Miss Elizabeth, all this other fun stuff. So there you go, a point for Mr. Sebastian. He needs it. He needs some catch-up. So, Mr. Uncle Mike, here's some extra half-point bonus opportunities. Can you name to me half-point bonus for any other event on the WrestleMania 5 cards?
I will say Ted DiBiase versus Greg Van. No, not Greg. Versus Tito Santana.
Yeah, I thought it was versus Jake the Snake.
Don't think that was Ted DiBiase. I'll have to make sure. Ted DiBiase, he fought Brutus the Barber. There we go. There we go. So you were half right.
Wasn't Demolition versus the Powers of Pain that event?
Yes, it was. But also, you could probably say any match of the 80s, chances are those two fought. But yes, yes, they were. So you get a half a point, Mr. Sebastian. So 1.5 points for Sebastian.
I'm trying to think. Tito Santana didn't he fight? You know what? Jake the Snake fought Rick Martel that one because Rick Martel blinded him with arrogance. His new fragrance.
Blinded him with arrogance.
I'll have to remember that?
I'll have to look here to see if that was this event.
The model Rick Martel. That was good. He was interesting.
Well, the funny thing is like that gimmick stunk, but he was a really, really good wrestler. And, you know, there was no reason to ruin him with that gimmick. Who did the American Dream fight that time?
Was Dusty Rhodes in the WWF that year?
I think he was.
It was Andre and Jake the Snake with Big John Studd as special guest referee. But I don't see, you said Jake the Snake versus the model. I don't see that, obviously. Heart Foundation versus Greg the Hammer and Honky Tonk. So there was a lot of other stuff there, but I don't see either of those. Still 1.5 points for Sebastian. Not bad. You're catching up. I know you had quite the hole to dig out of. We will tabulate the results as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there, listeners. And it's one of those days, listeners. I got a feeling if we wait another 10, 20 minutes, we'll have a full green market again. Right now, the NASDAQ has ticked green. The S&P is threatening it. Pretty much unched right now, and the Dow is off about 0.25%. Of course, everything started off lower. That's kind of the these markets by now, listeners. They sell off and then they rally. That's kind of what we're doing out there in the S&P again today. Still hanging out a little bit north of the 4,100 level, not too far away from it. So that 4,100 still, 4,100, let's say the 41.5 range, still remains just a magnet for the market. We can dip below it like we did the early part of last week, but we tend to come right back and then hang out here again. Seems like we're going to probably be hanging out here again today. All that a long way around to saying VIX when we kicked off the show was at about a 17.5. That's 3 points lower than it was when we all got together live last week. VVIX at a 93. That's 9 points, I should say, lower than it was on the Thursday episode. VXX 38 3/4, down about 3.5 points from where it was on Thursday. UVXY back down below 4, 360, down 0.6 of a point. SVIX 1860, up about 1.5 points from Thursday's show. UVIX 1120, down almost 2.5, about 240. And VolQ 18.5, down a little over 3, about 3.1 points. Remember, if you got questions about VolQ or all sorts of vol stuff, we'll have the creator of VolQ joining us on the Pro Q&A tomorrow. So if you're not over there yet, theoptionsinsider.com/pro, the place to go to join all that fun. All right, Mr. Meatball, while you were talking, I did tabulate up the results here, and TOSAW is still in the lead with 9 points, but you're looking more respectable now with 6.5 after today's tally, sir. So, congratulations for you, looking a little bit better. It was 5.
I still think I should get Giovinazzi's points because we're a team.
Andrew earned those points.
Yeah, I know. In my honor.
He's got a nice 2.
No.
He's sitting on a nice 2 there. So we'll leave those as Andrew's discrete points for now, sir. But
Andrew's got a shot at winning this thing. He's a come from behind guy.
As long as I make every guess, Hogan or Macho Man, Andrew has a shot. Yes, you're correct. Which he actually, ironically, when I saw him pop up today, I thought he had a shot because today was Hogan and Macho Man. So he might have had a shot today. So today could have been his day. And you stole it from him, Mr. Meatball. But I digress.
What number are we playing to? Like, at what point is there a winner?
Until the end of the year. Then whoever has the highest number. There's no set number. Yeah, we're going, baby. Go big or go home. And I'm already home, so I'm good.
There you go.
All right, Mr. Meatball, sir. Any other final thoughts on WrestleMania 5 or the glory of the Mega Powers and Miss Elizabeth? Very glorious. Or
I really enjoyed WrestleMania 5. I thought it was I thought it was really pretty good. That was probably the best one of the first several. The first 10. What would you? I mean, of the first 10, right? Obviously, the iconic one is Hogan slamming Andre the Giant, but that wasn't the best event. I think WrestleMania 5, as I recall, the card top to bottom.
It's hard to beat awesome. Hogan versus Macho, like the apex of their powers, right?
Right, but all the undercard was all really good too. I mean, really good, as I recall. I want to say Jim Duggan had a good match. Tito Santana was a great wrestler. I think he was the first match, the lead-in. You had those good tag team matches. You had the Hart Foundation. I mean, talk about technically good at wrestling. Hart Foundation versus Greg the Hammer and the Honky Tonk Man. That is just, everyone there knew how to wrestle. And then Demolition versus the Powers of Pain. That was like a year-long feud that came to a head there with Mr. Fuji behind the Powers of Pain, as I recall. Might have been the Slickster. That was a great, because WrestleMania 6 wasn't that great. I think once it started to get good again when you had the Hart versus Shawn Michaels stuff and the Undertaker really stepping in. But that wasn't till we got to WrestleMania 10 that things got good. Although no match will ever be as good as the dual airing of the wrestling movie and then Hulk Hogan versus Zeus. That was the best.
Zeus, that was some good stuff. Stuff. I tried to get for the prize last year for the 80s wrestling game that limited edition of Hogan versus Zeus 2-pack, but it sold out in like 2 seconds. You could not get it. Alas, the Sarge, the vintage 80s Sarge, not a bad secondary prize. Have you displayed it?
Sergeant Slaughter versus Hogan was a good match because Sergeant Slaughter knew how to wrestle. So it was mostly them just holding each other the whole time.
Have you displayed Sarge properly in your studio, sir? The major award
not
that
yet.
he is?
He will be coming. He will be placed here today.
All right, good stuff. Next to the leg lamp, I'm sure. Next to the other major award you have earned. All right, sir, what else is catching your eye out there in the markets today?
Well, mostly, after a just booming Friday, pretty inside day today. As I'm watching, the Russell 2000 looks very soft. The mid cap's getting a little bit of a pullback today. The overall financials looking stronger though. NASDAQ, mostly higher, but super inside day. The only real weak point is the Russell 2000, which down 0.5%, not like the end of the world, but it continues to kind of underperform this whole market, and a sign that things are still not all right. And just how much of this rally has been led by like Meta and Microsoft and Apple and Google is just really astounding that those 5-6 stocks have been able to hold up the entire stock market. But that's what they're doing.
So they're doing indeed. And speaking of which, I want to make a correction to what we reported earlier. The total coming into today was actually, we forgot to add the 2 points for TOSAW last week. So TOSAW was actually at 11.5 points. Sebastian was at 5.5. There also was a 0.5 point we had to add in there. So after today's run, it is 11.5 points for Uncle Mike in the guessing game versus 7 for the Greasiest of Meatballs and 2 for the Rock Lab. So there we go. That is our updated totals as we stand right now, listeners, coming into May, not even to June, not even halfway through the year in this epic contest. What will the prize be? We have not decided yet, listeners. We shall see. Uncle Mike, sir, did you enjoy the consolation prize of your IRS and the many tax questions that it resulted in? And then B, what else is catching your eye out there in the markets today, sir?
Loving me, the IRS. I got him sitting on my desk right now, looking at him as we speak. He's an inspiration to make sure you pay your taxes on time. Or if you want to be like the $1 Million Man, make friends with the IRS. That was a smart business move by the $1 Million Man, getting the IRS in his corner. But with this, looking at the markets right now, not a lot of movement, not a lot happening. At some point this week, we'll get some type of movement somewhere, somehow, of course. In looking at this, I think that market is kind of just digesting the moves with which it had last week. We had a big day on Friday, but ultimately down on the week. But in terms of where things are right now, Mark mentioned Meta. That's up just under 1% on the day. We got Netflix up over 2.5% on the day. So there are some movers out there. But the bigger names that typically moved the market a lot, Apple, of course, that's flat on the day. So we do have that on the sector realm. We do have a little bit of a gain in XLE, and we have a little bit of a loss in the industrials XLI. But aside from that, there's really a lot of flatness going on there. And then in the commodity space, we do have some movement in oil, up about 2.5% on the day. And not a lot of movement in silver, not a lot of movement in gold. So really not a lot happening right now. But we do have Bitcoin down 6%. So maybe that's a buying opportunity for the Bitcoin bulls out there. So on this, not a lot that's happening as of yet. So I think today's going to be, of course, we'll parse through everything like we always do. But today's going to be more of an around the block type of day, I guess.
Might be, and of course, you want more and all that. Down day on Bitcoin and everything else. Stay tuned for Crypto Rundown. Come up a little bit later. A banger episode last week. Man, that one really just lightened crypto Twitter aflame last week. So if you missed that one with the folks from Syscoin, man, a lot of folks enjoying that episode. So it should be a fun time this week. Stay tuned for the Crypto Rundown coming up in a little bit. First, let's take a run down these somewhat tranquil markets. The last time we gathered here together, listeners, A, it was live, so that's always fun. And then B, VIX was blowing the doors off. I think as of this time in the show, VIX had put up 1.2 million more contracts than we are seeing today. This volume today looks like a quiet, sleepy day in August. 208,000 contracts on the tape right now. That's a pale shadow from the, I think, 1.4 million we were at this time on Thursday. Just a crazy day. Of course, a lot of that was that insane 1x3 that we ended up talking about on vol views last week. But fun times nonetheless. 766,000, that's the ADV again. So kind of hanging out north of 700K again. SPY, though. SPY still managing somehow on this sleepy of sleepy days to put up 4 million contracts already. The ADV, 8.1, so it's pretty much right there. It's halfway there again. So day that ends in Y. VIX is asleep. SPY putting up some numbers there, listeners. The S also looking a little bit sleepy, which again shows you how much the S has evolved. This time about a year ago, S was at 1.2 million. I would say, man, that's a banger day. And now, of course, we are all living in the wake of this 0-day phenomenon, and everything old is meaningless in some ways because these numbers, all of a sudden, if you're not at 1.5 million or more by this time of the day in the S, it's a sleepy, quiet day. Let's look really quickly and see. Let's just check. Top 20. Oh, you know what? I see one contract in the top 20 today. 14,000 of the July 3,100 puts that are not expiring today. Everything else, 0-day, baby. So there you go. That's indicator in and of itself. A one contract sneaking into the top 20 in SPX today that is not expiring today. That's interesting because usually it's 20 for 20 every single day out there. Small caps also looking decently active, 465, closing in on halfway to their ADV, which is about exactly 1 million contracts right now. So to my surprise, they have managed to maintain that 1 million ADV. Looks like they're going to threaten it again today. And the Qs, 1.32 million. Their ADV about 2.8 million. That has come in a little bit, ever so slightly. It was a little bit north of 3 million not too long ago. Still pretty robust. We know the NASDAQ can put up some numbers. Surprisingly, not exactly blowing the doors off today. Let's see what's blowing the doors off there from a single name perspective. And the answer is not a lot, listeners. Only cost you 175,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets us to good old Microsoft, good old Softy. This one has kind of been on the rampage ever since the kind of double dose of the earnings and what looked at the time to be some decent news in the Activision acquisition. Maybe not so much on the European front now. And then, of course, all the AI love spilling over. It was kind of a triple whammy that lifted Microsoft higher. Let's see. Did they hit the 52-week high recently? Or I know they were threatening it. Yeah, I think they got there. 311.97. That was just last week. So, yeah, they're looking pretty lofty. Not so much today, giving back about 3 1/3, a little over 1%, trading 307 in about a third. And that's our number 10 spot. Number 9. You know, it's kind of a light day when this one's sneaking in. It is Palantir, 184,000 contracts on the tape for number 9. Palantir has earnings after the bell today. Palantir, not exactly looking like a world beater. Looking a little bit better today, though, up 43 cents after coming off some lows here. They were trading, obviously, threatening the 7 handle not too long ago. Their 52-week low is 592. It's like they hit that right at the start of the year. End of December, beginning of January was pretty much their 52-week low, right around 592. So they're obviously north of that. They did rally it in the big run-up in early part of the year in February. They rallied it up back north of $10 again, 10.11, and then right back down last week to 7.38 before turning it around a little bit today. They have earnings after the bell, so we'll see what that means. Are you watching Palantir? I know the Rock Lobster likes that name. I'm not sure if he's still as enamored with it as he was, but that was one of his favorites for a while. They're number 8. This your favorite, listeners? Who knows? It's Meta, the artist formerly known as Facebook. Market liking it today, up a little over 2 points, about 1% almost, 234.81 right now. Good for also 187,000 contracts. So again, kind of shows you what kind of sleepy day we're having, listeners. We're already coming in at number 7, and we haven't even broken 200K yet. We got to get to number 7 to do that, listeners. That is AMC, the reigning king of the apes, 596, up about a dime today. Good for 209,000 contracts. You know the deal with AMC. I will not belabor it out there. Let's instead keep going to number 6. We talked about this on the Odd Block last Thursday. This is Shopify. We talked about some interesting, straight up at the money, longer term puts going up out in Shopify last week. Like the stock rebounding there. They bought those right around the low post earnings, as I do recall. So the stock has done nothing but go upward ever since they bought those pretty meaty puts. So I'm assuming they have stock against them. So they're probably not altogether angry that the stock has gone up. But maybe you want those puts to pay off a little bit first. Then you get the rally. Then you win on both legs, right? But that's not happening here. Shopify up a little over $2, about 210, trading 64.10 right now. Continuing its rally from last week, where it shot up from 46 3/4 on Wednesday to pretty much by Thursday, it was trading almost $60, 59 and change. So nice pop there during our show last week. Then up to, what do we got here? Up to number 5. That is the Amazonians. 247,000. Again, we're at number 5. We're only a little bit shy of 250,000 contracts. That kind of shows you what a sleepy day it is, listeners. 105.5. That's where Amazon's hanging out right now, off about a dime. Again, good for about 250,000 contracts. Not too much to read into there. Let's keep on going to number 4. That's the chip zone. The first, and actually, no, I take it back. There is another chip zone representative a little bit higher. So that's interesting. The chip zone kind of flipping over the last week. AMD topping out over NVIDIA. We don't normally see that. NVIDIA today, number 4, 441,000. NVIDIA up about 260, trading right around 289.40 right now. You know the deal with NVIDIA. It's threatening. Its 52-week high is about $1 below it right now. So just banner times for anything associated with AI out there these days, listeners. And NVIDIA, certainly one of them. Number 3, listeners, the name that surprised a lot of people last week. They can sell some iPhones, even if they are mostly in emerging markets, but still, they can sell them. Apple, 524,000 contracts on the tape. 173 and about 2/3 there. Within spitting distance of their 52-week high. Asked you about this in our poll a couple weeks ago. We have more results for that a little bit later. We'll get to your thoughts on Apple in a little bit. But first, let's keep going to number 2. Yes, I said number 2, the other half of the chip zone, listeners. We haven't seen AMD topping NVIDIA all that often, and yet we saw it last week. Now we're seeing it again. AMD popping over $5 today, 5.10, almost 6%, trading right around $95 for them. So quite the pop here for AMD. My gosh, good pop for them. 724,000 contracts on the tape for them, but still not enough to dethrone the king, listeners. If you come for the king, you best not miss, because it's Tesla today. Once again, 172 and about 1/3, up about 2 1/3 today. Good for a little bit shy of 1 million contracts, about 900,000 contracts on the tape. If you know Tesla, you know if you're listening to this show, that's pretty light volume for Tesla. But again, it's one of those days, listeners. So Tesla looking respectable, AMD looking respectable. The rest of our top 10 today, not so much. But you know what? If you want some more to light up your tape this week, got some nice earnings on the docket for you. We got PayPal after the bell today. The aforementioned Palantir after the bell today. We've got Western Digital today after the bell. Six Flags popping off today as well. Tomorrow we got Under Armour, the old Duke Energy, a.k.a. the Duck, Airbnb, RIVN, Twilio, Wynn Resorts, EA. Got some gaming vol out there. Wednesday, we got Roblox, Disney, Beyond Meat, and Robinhood, and Wendy's. Thursday, we've got Krispy Kreme and Yeti. All sorts of fun popping off this week. So stay tuned for that as we dive into some of our earnings vol. At Six Flags before the bell. Let's see. They were at 22 and about a half going into their announcement today. They're pricing in 8.1%. Man, they delivered almost a little over 20%, actually. Six Flags. My goodness. Popping hard. Up nearly $5. So is the much bemoaned death of the amusement park industry, is that behind us now? Let's see. Looks like they blew the doors off. Attendance trends improve. Going to have a surge pricing program. Oh, there we go. Let's all follow Uber's trend on that result. Either way, the market liking what they're seeing up there. Up nearly $5, about $4.60 right now. Trading $27, 20.5%. They're only pricing in 8%. So, my goodness, that's a banger. Who'd have thought? Six Flags blowing the doors off. But that's what we got out there today before the bell. Also got, let's see, KKR before the bell. They were at 51.5 going into their announcement. They were pricing in about 5%. They delivered 1.5%. So they're moving in the other direction in terms of not delivering a lot of juice, not a lot of bang for the buck. Let's get out to after the bell today. PayPal, $75. They were pricing in, they are pricing in really $5.5, about $5.40 actually. And in the past, they moved $6.16, so a little bit less juice for PayPal, all things considered. That's kind of interesting. Let's keep rolling out here. Let's go to the Duke, a.k.a. the Duck, hopping off tomorrow before the bell. Duke Energy, of course, listeners. 99 1/3. Ticker symbol DUK, of course, why we call it the Duck. They're pricing in $2.41. In the past, they moved to $1.61, so a heck of a lot of extra juice out there in the Duck. Again, if you've been watching crude oil and that gas, maybe a little bit understandable why they're putting a little bit of extra juice out there. Airbnb tomorrow after the bell, about 120 is where they were trading, pricing in 961. In the past, they moved 942. So right about in line, which is kind of interesting. Electronic Arts, 9th after the bell, 125 and about a half is where they were trading. They're pricing in 516. In the past, they moved 491. So a little bit extra juice in the gaming front, but not a heck of a lot. RIVN, one of these electronic vehicle startups, still very much a wait-and-see prospect with them, even though I do occasionally see RIVN on the streets. It is still a very rare sight. 9th after the bell, 1341. They're pricing in $1.83. In the past, they moved to $1.32, so nearly 50 cents worth of extra juice there. Again, with these EV startups, such a crapshoot. So it's hard to argue that more juice is not warranted. Let's go out to Roblox. $35 is where they're trading, 10th before the bell. They're pricing in about $4. In the past, they moved a little over $6. So that's actually a heck of a lot less juice for Roblox, which is very interesting. Let's just see where the stock is hanging out right now. Roblox trading a little bit north of $36 right now, up about $1 out there right now. Wow. Intriguing stuff here for good old Roblox. A couple more here. Let's go Beyond Meat, 10th after the bell, about $13 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $2. In the past, they moved to $1.31. So a little bit of extra juice in Beyond Meat. And let's wrap it up with the Diz, 10th after the bell. Right about $100 even, a little bit north of it, about 100.5 is where they were trading. As of this report, they're pricing in, get this, listeners, $5.83. In the past, they've moved $3.64. That is a heck of a lot of extra juice for Disney. Wow. Of course, they're undergoing some transition over there. New CEO / old CEO back in charge, kind of reshaping a lot of what's going on over there on the entertainment side, on the park side. So looks like they're pricing in a fair amount of that juice here. Listen, they're expecting something pretty seismic coming out of this announcement. So that should be pretty interesting one. If you want to see all those numbers for yourselves and a whole heck of a lot more, we just really scratched the surface there. As well as these reports, like right now, the earnings season report, listeners, with 539 names reporting, we're back up over 100%, 104% right now. So outperforming yet again our long-term average, 96%. And looking at 75 long straddles, 49 long calendars for your earnings. Trading fun, theoptionsinsider.com is the place to go to get all that data and a whole bunch more completely for free because we love you folks as we keep on rolling right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, and occasionally whimsical. We unleash the eye of Sauron upon the markets, see what it fixes its fiery gaze upon. Today, we're going out to Carvana. Haven't talked about this one in a little bit. Trading right around $11 right now, up about $2 or a little over 22% today. So, bit of a banger day for them. Ticker symbol CVNA. You know the deal for this one, listeners. They have those crazy car vending machines. You've probably driven past one on the highway at some point if you live near a major metropolitan area. On the year here, let's see. A year ago, it was almost $40, so that puts that nearly $11 in perspective. It was 38 3/4. Then they hit it down to about $20 in July. Then they rallied it back up to $58 in August of last year, listeners. And then they've just pretty much come for it. They crushed it down to $3.72 in December of last year. I know there's been a lot of questions about this name. Even here locally in Illinois, they've been banned and then unbanned and then banned again. There's a lot of rigmarole with this name, a lot of drama. So crushing it down pretty much to their low for the year, right around $3.50 in December of last year. Then they rallied it with all the big rally in February. They got up to about 14.25, almost 14.5. And then that's kind of the apex for them. They hit it back down to about $7 in March. Since then, it was actually trading $7 just a few sessions ago. So obviously today's pop looking good, and over the last 5 days looking pretty good. Back up to almost $11. So they had a nice little upbeat forecast. Also, maybe, just maybe, some, as I think the Meatball likes to put it, squeezy McSqueezerstein action going on out there. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here today, listeners. Looks like it's a ratio 1x2 call spread. You don't see these a lot, but we just talked about one last week in VIX. It was a 1x3, selling 1, buying 2. I think we got a little bit different out here this time, though, listeners. It was the May expiring on the 12th. So this was done in the weeklies even. So very near dated paper. It was the 10-13 1x2 ratio call spread going up 5,000 by 10,000 times initially. And it looks like paper did it for 27 cents the first time. And they came back and did more because when we first saw it was 10,000. And then by the total of the day, it was 12,000 by 24,000 as we had kicked off the show out there. So that's some freaking size out there. Buying 1, selling 2, listeners. So given the fact that this name has had the crap beaten out of it over the last year, that type of ratio spread usually associated with a stock repair, listeners. People sitting on a bunch of stock that's been annihilated. You're going to buy 1, sell 2. Hopefully the thing rallies up to 13 and you get out for a much better level than 13, obviously. So intriguing stuff there. Mr. Meatball, A, did you notice this on all of your various flows? And then B, do you agree that this is a bit of a stock repair in a much beaten up name, sir?
Yeah, I had not seen this till you pointed out. And it does indeed look like stock repair after, this name's had not been as participating with the rest of the market, let's say.
Not been getting the love, but somebody's feeling the love out there today. You like this, listeners? The 1x2 call spread? I mean, this is just next week. And they did it for 27 cents the first time. I don't know what the later prices are. Obviously, probably a little more. But intriguing stuff. You like buying 1, selling 2 for 27 cents? You have to have some stock against it. Otherwise, you got a naked short leg there. I don't think anyone wants a naked short leg and a name that's could potentially be the target of a short squeeze. We all saw what happened with that back in 2021. So I would not advocate doing this naked. But maybe if you got some stock, does this intrigue you? I'm curious. Let us know out there as we keep on rolling away from Carvana and into another name that came across our radar a few times over the last year. This has mostly been out in oddities land. This is Turtle Beach, ticker symbol here, HEAR, because, of course, they make a lot of gaming-related headsets and peripherals, so an appropriate ticker for them. Trading 11 3/4, kind of the opposite of what's going on in Carvana. They're getting drubbed today, off about $1.25 or about 9 1/3%. This is the name, as I recall, we did see people loading up on puts on them a while ago and then taking those puts off the table and then buying more even farther down at extremely low strikes, which always makes you wonder, what are they up to? What are they worried about? This thing going to zero? Because that's pretty much what has to happen for some of these crazy low strike puts that they're paying exorbitant prices for to pay off. But this name has not had a great year. A year ago, it was trading $16.50. Got up to their high for the year in May of last year, right around 19 1/3. And that was pretty much it. They hit it down to close to their low actually was their low for the year in October of last year, 6.17. And they tried to rally it a few times, $10 in December. That failed, back down to $6. And then they rallied it again, almost $12 in April, 11.81. And then back down to looks like about 10. And then they have rebounded it now a third time. Got up to about $13 just last week, and then come right back down again, 11.78 again today. So for whatever reason, these rallies cannot maintain their steam here in Turtle Beach. Maybe this is why people were loading up on so many puts. Let's see what we found today. Looks like it is puts, but this time a little bit different. We got somebody, looks like, drawing a line in the sand and now in the money line in the sand. Interesting. On the 12 puts in October, blasting away at 10,000 of them for $1.35. This was a pretty wide market. It was $1.20 at $2, so 80-cent wide market. That's a lot of juice. They went up for $1.35. The stock, was actually higher, $12.40. So they're obviously failing the first test, selling puts, and the stock falls another almost 70 cents. Not a great thing. The vol was about a 51. And they're going to be earnings between now and October expiration. The next announcement is going to be on August 8th. So interesting. They had earnings last week. That was the rally. They beat their earnings, which is why the stock rallied up north of $12 last week. But apparently they cannot maintain that. And someone here deciding, you know what? $12 minus $1.35. I'll take that stock. I'll take that stock at $10.65. Why not? Good level. It's still a heck of a lot north of their 52-week low, I should say, of 617. So they could still be wearing it on this, but intriguing. You like these, listeners? You like blasting away at the 12 strike for $1.35? I'm curious. Mr. Meatball, what about you? What are your thoughts here on someone drawing a pretty sizable line in the sand in Turtle Beach on the OCC 12 puts?
You know, I saw these, and yeah, pretty nice sale. I kind of liked it. The stock obviously has had a nice dip. So someone's saying, hey, you know what? At these levels, I'll buy it and I'll sell puts here. Fine by me.
They get the Meatball seal of approval. Go out. Speaking of meat, let's go out to some meaty puts and pay these off. These are from January 30th of this year. Talk about Pool Corp, ticker symbol Pool. They make pool supplies. Go figure out there. Trading $351.80 right now, off a little over $2. So a very pricey pool company. Back in January, we talked about somebody loading up on the April 300 puts, the par puts, 7,000 times. Get this market. They were $270 at $6 for these puts, listeners. And this customer said, you know what? I'll pay $6, 7,000 times. My goodness. So they paid $6 for the 300 puts. That's about almost a 50 vol, 49 vol. Wow. The stock of the time was even higher, listeners. It was $376.58. They had earnings coming up in February 16th before the open. A few weeks in, they were not looking good there on these puts. Listen, yeah, pool stock close on expiration, $343 in about a quarter. So lower, substantially lower. But again, that gets back to your strike selection, listeners. You buy the par puts, the stock's got to fall out of bed. And alas, it did not. And so closed at $343. The par puts were still open. So yeah, they dropped $4.2 million on a very expensive swing of the bet. This is kind of a worst case scenario for buying puts because you probably own stock against it. You buy puts probably to protect, but you buy these a worthless strike, but still very expensive. So you get very little protection for them. The stock still falls. And on top of that, you just lose $6 extra on your put. So this is just a loser across the board. Mr. Meatball, what do you think on someone throwing a lot of money away in some pricey but useless Pool Corp puts, sir?
You know, maybe they want to lose. You know, it could be a hedge, something like that. You know, one of those type of things. This thing just doesn't trade. It's not like this is an active stock. So if somebody's slinging some size, they are probably hedging and probably don't care if they lose.
We shall see. We shall also see what Uncle Mike has in store for us. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, time for Uncle Mike, a.k.a. the tax man. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what you got in store for us today?
I want to talk about covered calls and what to do if and when your covered call goes in the money. Now, anyone that's ever traded a covered call understands the frustration of selling a covered call and then the stock going significantly higher above the strike price. And then you think to yourself, well, why did I do this dumb option thing? Because if I had just held the stock, I'd have made a lot more money. We've all been there. And in reality, you just have to have the mentality of what a covered call actually is. So let's say that you're selling an out of the money covered call. XYZ is at $53 a share and you're selling the 55 covered call on it. Regardless of the time frame, you're selling a slightly out of the money covered call. Now, of course, your dream to feel smart would be have this stock be at $54.90 on expiration Friday, let the covered call expire worthless, and then just repeat the process, getting extra money as the stock goes up for, in theory, a slightly bearish strategy. The call it is, not the stock and call combined. So that's what you really want to happen. But reality dictates the fact that that's not going to happen all the time. In fact, it happens very seldom like that from my experience anyway. So what is your plan if and when the stock goes in the money? Well, first off, I think the most important part is to have a plan before you get into it. Because if the stock does go in the money and you don't have a plan, then magically you start getting a lot more emotional. And when you get emotional, it's typically not a good time to be trading. So the first part of this is make up your mind, know your exit, know your plan before you get into the trade. With that being said, let's say that the stock goes to the 55 level, maybe even the $55.25 level. That stock's now in the money. What do? Well, you have some choices. First choice is that you do nothing. You realize that when you sold this covered call, you had the risk of potentially getting called away on it. You're going to do nothing. You're going to be happy getting that gain from 53 to 55 in addition to whatever premium that you sold. And if it gets called away, it gets called away. If the stock goes to 60 or 70, well, that's fine, but you still made the profit you wanted to make. That's one method with which you could do. Another method with which you could do is you could try to roll the call. Meaning you buy back the 55 call for a greater price than you sold it for, which would be a slight loss on it. And maybe you could roll it up to a 57 call, or maybe roll it out a month or two. Whatever the case may be, you can roll it. Now, keep in mind, when you roll an option, you are taking a loss. It feels like you're not, but you are. You're taking a loss on the call you sold itself. Now, I'm convinced that stockbrokers from the 70s and 80s invented the term roll because it sounds a lot better to say that to your client than saying, oh, I took a loss on the original covered call we sold, but now I'm going to try it again. It just sounds a lot better saying, well, the stock's going up, we're going to have to roll up that option. That sounds a lot better. So that's where I think the term actually came from, but I have nothing to document my theory. So on there, if you do decide to roll up or roll out, whatever way with which you want to do it, it could work, it could not work. But was that your plan to begin with? That's something with which you need to make up your mind and have an understanding that if the stock does keep going higher and higher and you keep rolling the call higher and higher, at some point you will have taken enough losses on these roll-ups that it's going to be something to where the call premium is not benefiting you at all because you've taken so many losses on these. And if you roll out, perhaps you're rolling up and out, eventually you're going to get to a point, I shouldn't say never, you could get to a point to where in the first scenario, of course, you are out of money. Like I had said, you could get to that scenario, but you also could get to a scenario to where all of a sudden you're 4 years out on your covered calls and you're hoping that the stock stays the same for those 4 years because that's how long you're tied up for. That's a risk with which you can take. Me personally, there's two ways with which I go with it. If I'm concerned with the stock going way higher, I sell a call spread. I think that that's the surefire way with which you can get called away if it's between your strikes. But in the example with which I'm telling you, if you, instead of selling just the 55 call, simultaneously buy the 58 call or the 60 call. So that way, if the stock does go to 90, you don't have to worry about that. And you still get a little bit of premium. You won't get as much premium, but you'll still get something if that's what you're trying. That's one way with which I'll handle it. But if I'm not selling a call spread, me personally, I'll just let it get called away and move on to the next month, maybe sell a put to get into it again or sell another in the money covered call to get into it. But I've found that when you try to overtrade, it typically doesn't end well. So what I like to do a lot of times, not every time, is if I'm concerned with it going up too high before I get into the trade, I'll buy another garbage call out of the money just in case, because that gives me a lot more peace of mind knowing, well, if it does go way higher, I'm protected to the upside, if you will. Or I'll just let it get called away. And that is the strategy block for May 8th.
And now it's time for us to keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. This is where we tell you where we're keeping an eye on until our next episode on Thursday. Really quickly, like some of our chat, like in the discussion of Carvana. Nicholas says he looked into Carvana when he was selling his car a few years ago. It seemed kind of shady, so he didn't want to go with them. So he does admit later on he really just wanted to see the vending machine in action. That's kind of what brought him to the dance. Yeah, I get you. It does look pretty cool. My kid tried to get me to buy a car from them just to see the vending machine in person for themselves. There is a certain Rube Goldberg-esque appeal to that sort of device, which is probably why they built it in the first place out there. Speaking of your thoughts, listeners, our question of the week just went live a few minutes ago. If you get over to @options, you can make your voice heard right now. It's a very simple one this week. Where are you guys putting your money right now? In these troubled times, quite simply, where are you allocating the majority of your portfolio? I'll give you 4 choices: cash, crypto, equities, or commodities/fixed income. Right now, man, crypto running away with it in the early voting. 50% saying crypto, a third exactly for equities, 16.7% for cash, 0 votes for commodities or fixed income. Again, it just went live about 10 minutes ago, so this is just the first minutes of voting. So get over there @options. You'll find it near the top of our feed, and you can make your voice heard. As we go around our own horn, let's start with the greasiest of Meatball. Mr. Meatball, are you surprised that crypto is winning the early blush of our poll? And then B, what are you keeping an eye on for until Thursday's show, sir?
You know, I'm not surprised that crypto is leading. I mean, if you look at what with the dollar getting weaker and everything like that, and then again, and how much Mike TOSAW's been pushing crypto, it makes sense. It's got the influencer behind it. For next week, obviously, for between now and Thursday, we'll have CPI out. We still have some big earnings that I think are important, but CPI is going to be the big driver. I think it's going to be a snooze fest till then.
Snooze palooza. Uncle Mike, how violated are you at your core that crypto is leading our poll right now? And then B, what else is catching your eye until Thursday, sir?
Oh, I feel no violation. I have no emotional attachment to money. So, well, wait a minute. Should that be anchoring me? Oh, never mind. No, I agree with Mark. There's a lot of reason to believe that there should be some snooze festing going on. So we'll see. But sometimes when the snooze fest happens, the alarm goes off before you expect it. And we might get some type of news that we're not expecting. So manage risk as always, folks.
Like the battle continues. As we were speaking, listeners, equities just took the lead. Now with 50%, crypto at 37.5%, cash 12.5%. Still no love for. We put commodities and fixed income together. I thought people would take umbrage at that. They thought each should be their own, which you could argue they could be. But they got no votes right now, so it doesn't matter. So intriguing stuff. @options, the place to go if you want to change those results, listeners. And I mentioned, stay tuned if you want to debate the merit of crypto and all sorts of other fun. We got you covered coming up in a little bit here with the crypto rundown. If you're listening live, just hang out. We'll be back in a little bit with all of that goodness. We'll pump some fun stuff into the live stream so you can listen to some content while you're waiting for the crypto rundown. All sorts of goodness. But before we do that, let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the greasiest of Meatball. Mr. Meatball, sir, any last nuggets you want to share from your epic in-person extravaganza in Chicago? Have at it. And then B, if folks want to check out what you got cooking in the pit, maybe get signed up for your next big extravaganza, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, well, go to optionpit.com. We're putting out amazing content every day. And yeah, when we do these conferences, you should make it a point to come because all I do is bring in great speakers. Mike did a absolutely amazing presentation on, tax trading and tax and how and IRAs versus Roths. It was pretty darn great. I was very glad that we got to see that, and so make sure that you're checking things out and going to optionpit.com every day for the amazing content that we put out.
There you go. If you want to actually see that panel, your folks did send us the video, Mr.
Oh, nice.
Maybe we'll cut that together and put that out on our YouTube so the folks can see how the sausage is made, listeners. So maybe stay tuned for that if you want a little bit of a taste of all that goodness. You want to see Uncle Mike steering with love at his IRS figure, and that's maybe coming your way very soon via our YouTube at Uncle Mike. If folks want to reach out to you to discuss the glory days of 80s wrestling or anything else, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Hey, for sure. You can check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. Reach out to me. Would love to have a conversation with anyone discussing 80s wrestling, option taxation, or financial planning in general. stcharleswealth.com, or follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW.
There you go. Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. That's going to do it for us here on the old OB. Back in a little bit for the crypto rundown. Back again tomorrow for a pro Q&A for all you pro folks with Mr. Scott Nations. Should be a banger. Wednesday, we've got your dose of the option block, I should say the options boot camp coming at you. Remember, we had a doubleheader last week. You get the second half of that. If you're not on the pro side already got it last week. And then maybe we'll convince a little bit of OPR action to happen. We shall see. And then back again on Thursday, another episode of the option block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.